Hi, my name's Franke, and today I'm going to talk to you about teaching sit, down from both a sit and stand position, as well as a leave it behavior using positive reinforcement techniques. Sit is not exactly a natural behavior for a dog, but we love our dogs to sit because when our dog is sitting, they can't offer other behaviors such as jumping, counter surfing, and they can't usually misbehave while they're sitting. Because of this, we want to teach our dogs to love sitting. We're going to do this using lots of treats and lots of reinforcement with a lot of repetitions. Our finished product cue for the sit is going to look like a flat palm facing the sky and a motion upward. So using positive training methods, we have three options to get a dog manipulated into a position that we want. We have luring, shaping, and capturing. We're going to use luring in order to get our dogs to sit. The way the lure for a sit works is you're going to take treats in your hand. This is going to be the hand that you're going to engage the dog with. You're going to bring your hand down to the dog's nose and lift it up slightly so that the nose points upward. You're going to bring your hand over the dog's head, and this will cause the dog either to back up or bend their legs. When they do this, gravity will kick in and their bottom will hit the floor. As soon as their bottom hits the floor, you're going to mark with your yep or your click, and then you're going to treat the dog immediately and then release them once you give them the treat. First, we take the treats, we bring it to the dog's nose, we lift slightly and bring it over their head, and we get the sit. Yep, treat, all done. Once the dog is able to lure readily into a sit, you're ready to start building your hand signal. The way this is going to work is you're going to take the treats in the same way that you lured them in, but you're only going to go about an inch or two away from his nose and then do the motion. If he can do that 5 times successfully and he goes into a sit for it, then you're going to move about another inch or two away. So you'll be about 3 or 4 inches away. If he does that 5 times in a row and he sits every time, then you can move a little farther, and it's going to keep going that way until you can stand up straight and give the motion and he will sit for it. Once you can do that, you can take the treat out of your hand because you don't want it to be a bribe forever. So you can take the treat out of your hand and give the hand motion. If he does that, then you're going to want to practice that as often as possible until you build a very strong hand signal. The next position I'm going to cover is down from a standing position. I like to teach down from a standing position first because it's a little harder for the dogs to get it from the standing position. So if they can get it from the stand, then they're going to be able to get it from a sit. The way that the hand signal for down is going to look will be your palm facing down and a downward motion. So most dogs will lure into a down, but for some we're going to have to break the behavior into small steps and we're going to have to shape it. The way that we lure it down is we take treats in our hand, we take it to the dog's nose, and we slowly bring it to the ground. We want to keep the dog engaged as we're going to the ground so that they're interested in the treat. When we get to the ground, we're going to slightly move the treats in towards the dog. This will elicit the dog to get into a bow position. Once we get the dog into a bow position, we wait the dog out until gravity takes effect and their bottom will eventually hit the ground. We just want to sit and wait patiently down at the bottom with our hand on the ground until we get that full down all the way. As soon as we get the down, we mark them and then we drop the treat on the floor in between their legs. The reason we drop the treat on the floor is because they'll expect the treat from the floor. So we don't want them to jump up after we get them into the down. So they'll start associating the treat with the floor and they'll stick to it. And it'll help us build our hand signal and help us build our down stay later on. For the down, we're gonna take our treats and bring it to the dog's nose. We're gonna slowly go down to the floor and bring it in. Yep. All done. The next behavior I'm going to work on is a down from a sit position. This is very, very similar to down from a stand, except the way that we move our hand once we get to the ground. So first we're going to lure our dog into the sit. I highly recommend treating your dog once they get into the sit because they're probably still learning that behavior. Once you get them into the sit, you take another treat in your hand, you bring it to their nose, and you slowly bring it down to the ground, keeping them engaged the entire time. When your hand gets to the ground, you're gonna kind of bring it out just a little away from the dog. This is where it's different from down from a stand. Down from a stand, you move it into them a little bit to try to elicit that bow to get them down. Down from a sit, you wanna slide it out to try to get them to slide forward. Once they get into the down position, you're gonna mark immediately and then treat them right in between their paws on the floor. Again, this is gonna help them stay down, and it's gonna help us with building our hand signal and building the down stay later. So down from a sit will be a little easier than down from a stand. We lure our dog into a sit or get them into a sit, treat them for that since they're still probably learning it. And then we're gonna bring the treats down slowly, keeping them engaged, and we're gonna move our hands away from the dog rather than in like with the stand. So treat to the nose, slowly down and out, and then treat. Yep. If our dog can lure readily into a down, we're ready to start building the hand signal. The way we're gonna do that is very similar to the way that we built the hand signal for sit, 1 inch at a time. So we've been bringing our hand down to the ground fully this whole time. Now, we're gonna bring our hand about 2 to 3 inches from the ground and wait for them to down. If they can down 5 times in a row from 3 inches, we move to 5 inches. If they'll do it 5 times in a row from 5 inches, we can go to 6 or 7 inches. We slowly go all the way up until we can offer the full hand signal motion from standing straight up. Once we can do that, we can take the treat out of our hand and we can work on building the hand signal without the treat so that we're not using a bribe. So when you get to about their nose height, that's when it gets really difficult because they have to pull away from the treat, and it might get a little harder. I might have to make it a little easier for them. It's all right to make it easier for them so that they keep succeeding. We want them to have a high rate of success. That'll keep them motivated to keep playing the game. Yep, all done. The next behavior that I'm gonna talk about is a leave it. For the leave it, you're gonna wanna have treats in both of your hands. One hand is gonna be the leave it, and that's the one that you're gonna present to the dog. The other hand is gonna be the hand that you're gonna treat the dog with, and that hand's gonna be behind your back. You're gonna present the leave it hand to the dog. The dog's gonna paw it, sniff it, they're gonna lick it, they're gonna do a whole bunch of things to try to get that treat, and you just need to wait and ignore it. As soon as the dog pulls their nose away from the treat, you yep with the mark, and then you treat them with the other hand. It's important that you don't treat them with the leave it hand ever. They need to know that they're never ever gonna get this treat. You also kind of wanna treat them away in the direction that they look away at first. The reason for this is it helps to build and shape the head turn away, which is what we want to build for the leave it. So for leave it, we have treats in both hands. We're only gonna present the one hand, that's our leave it hand, and we're gonna treat from our other hand, that's behind our back. We're gonna present it to him, and we're gonna say leave it when we do that. Leave it. So he can paw on it, lick at it, he can do whatever he wants. I'm just gonna wait him out. As soon as he pulls away, might have to be patient. Yep. We treat them out here. We want them to really associate that head turn. When your dog is readily leaving the leave it hand and they're not going near it, that's when you're ready to start progressing. You're gonna start moving your hand towards the ground, closer to the ground, and start practicing lower and lower. 95% of the time when we're working with the leave it, we want the dog to leave something that's on the ground. As we get towards the ground, and they are performing well, if they're leaving it alone when we're on the ground with a closed fist, we can open up our fist. They're probably gonna go for it, so it's gonna be a racing game. We don't want the dog to get the treat. Again, we never want them to get the leave it item. So you need to be really quick in snatching it if they go for it. You don't wanna pull it away because that might elicit them chasing it. You just wanna leave it there and close your fist so that they can't get it. As soon as they can do it for an open hand readily and they leave that alone, you can start setting the treat on the floor. You're gonna wanna keep your hand close again so that they can never get the leave it item. It's going to be a race at first. When you first set it on the ground, they probably will go for it. So you need to be really quick in covering it. Yep, here you go. So he looked away, he looked out, and it was kind of accidental there, but that's all right. I'm gonna reward him for it anyway, and I rewarded him for him out here because he looked that way. Leo. Leave it. And then from there, you're gonna progress to slowly dropping it. I don't think Leo's ready there, so I'm not gonna practice with it, but you're gonna start dropping it just from a little bit, so it gets a little bit, and I'm gonna hold him back so he can't get it. Just drop it a little bit so it gets a little bit of movement. And remember, you're gonna have to be ready to cover the treat so that he can never get that leave it, because if he does, then he's gonna get reinforced for going for it. So it's kind of a race. And that's how you teach leave it. The end.